Recording in progress.
Safra, you shall start and time is started.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the session today. So today we have quite a range of people, but before we go there, I would like to go over a few housekeeping items. So you know how to participate in today's event. At any time during this webinar, you'll have the opportunity to submit your questions to today's presenters. To do so, just type your questions into Q&A at the bottom of the control panel. As time allows, the presenters will address as many questions as they can during the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. As you can see, we are already recording this webinar and we'll share it on our social media channels. Welcome to the panel discussion on More Than Words. Can AI effectively monitor online harms? Digital technologies have brought a myriad of benefits to society, transforming how people connect and communicate with each other. However, they have also enabled harmful and abusive behaviors to reach large audiences. The marginalized and vulnerable communities are often disproportionately at risk of receiving hate, compounding other social inequalities and injustices. This has created a huge risk, exacerbating social tensions and contributing to the division and breakdown of social bonds. Global tragedies demonstrate the potential for online hate to spill over into real-world violence. The main outcome is for participants to leave with a clear understanding of the complexities of online hate, the difficulties of defining, finding, and challenging it, the limitations...
Safra, give me a minute, Safra. You need to switch off the background or change it to green. Yeah. Yeah, better. Go ahead.
Thank you. But also the potential of AI to solve this problem. We will address the risk of online harms and scrutinize the need for human rights to be actively integrated into how online spaces are governed, moderated, and managed. Without further ado, I'd like you to introduce our panelists. First off, we have Rashi. She is currently the Global Project Coordinator for Hate-Based at the Sentinel Project, a repository of regionalized multilingual hate speech. Hate-Based was built to assist companies, government agencies, NGOs, and research organizations to moderate online conversations and potentially use hate speech as a predictor for regional violence. As a steering committee member for the Internet Rights Principle Coalition, she advocates towards upholding human rights on the Internet and rooting Internet governance processes and systems in human rights standards. She is also the scientific committee member of Missions Public's the Internet Project. Over to you, Rashi.
Hi, everyone. A very good afternoon and very good morning here. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what we do with Hate-Based. We're basically a hate speech monitoring platform where we have, I think, a regionalized multilingual lexicon of hate terms from across the world. We have around, I think, 7,000 to 8,000 different sightings with 98 different languages. And one of our, I would say, our ideas and motivations behind starting this platform is because of the sheer volume of online hate speech that we see all across the world. And we also know that we don't have a... Can someone switch their mic off? I'm seeing some disturbance. That's okay. Can anyone mute themselves, please? Great. So we are, where was I going? Yes, so we're looking at monitoring. So there are, I would say, three challenges. One is the linguistic challenges when it comes to monitoring hate speech because of the social, cultural nuances that we'll have to look through and sift through when it comes to monitoring on our platform. The second challenges are the sheer volumes and the different platforms that we look at. For example, Facebook is a lot more closed as a platform for us to be able to monitor public conversations, whereas Twitter is a lot open. Short answer, we would say that ML and AI systems are not there yet when it comes to effectively monitoring, because we do require an aspect of human moderation on our platform to be able to define what hate speech is. We also have our own definition of hate speech, and there are a lot of organizations that have different varying definitions of hate speech. But we look at hate speech as, we have two aspects. One is that we also have an offensiveness rating aspect, where we're looking at citizens from all across the world to be able to understand from their social dynamics and their social perspectives, to be able to rate hate speech terms all across the world. So yeah, I think that's a little bit about what we do on HatePace, and I'm happy to take any questions later on.
Thank you so much, Rashi. With that, we go to Sahityanan. Sahityanan is a development practitioner with more than 4 years of experience in the development sector. He has been working for over 5 years as a community leader in skills development, youth empowerment, and gender rights. Currently working as project coordinator, supporting efforts to counter the spread of harmful rumors, misinformation, and all within Sri Lanka, especially those which are linked to gender-based abuses. He is also United Creative Ambassador for UNDP Asia Pacific, working to end hate speech, amplifying positive messages, and creating social change in the new media avenues. With that, Sahityanan.
Thank you so much, Safra, and also it's great to see a lot of participants, and it's a very enthusiastic topic today we are talking, and something which is current and right after the global pandemic also, which has escalated this a lot. So I'm Sahityanan, and as Safra mentioned, I do work a lot on hate speech, misinformation, and hate speech monitoring as well. And particularly what we do in the project of Sentinel is, so we are based in Sri Lanka, and we try to bring early warning system for identifying hate speech and misinformation. And once with the identification, we try to bring down these communal violences and also ethnic clashes, and something more towards in a serious side, where these mass atrocities even can lead to genocide. And we can talk a lot more about this in later on, but that's the whole concept what we're trying to do. And I think it's a very new phenomenon for the South Asian region as well in last few years, and especially in Sri Lanka as well. Right after 2019 East attack, we had a big huge rise in the fake news and hate speech as well, and especially the more how we got democratized by the internet, our freedom of expression also got the length of us having freedom of speech, self-fulfillment, and getting this truth and knowledge, and being open to ideas and all. But that also created another vacuum of threats that what we see as hate speech, and I think that's something which really need to be addressed. So where the freedom of expression matters, and where do we draw the line, and those things are very questionable. And as a society and being in a democratic process, it's very hard to distinguish as well. So very interested in today's topic, how AI will be part of the social sector. So I will more talk on the social side of it, but let's hope we'll have a fruitful conversation today.
Thank you so much. And with that, we go to Shah. So Shah Rahman comes from the IT sector with experience in IT, ICTD, enterprise, telco projects, and services, service support, innovation, and as well as business development. He is currently the head of business development at eBuy Host, and he brings in a technical angle to AI and moderating hate. Over to you, Shah.
Thank you, Safar, for the nice introductions. Actually, I also worked with that NLP last couple of years. I implemented that chatbot, AI bot. So some of the context I also used in NLP and other deep learning. So from my perspective, I will describe some little bit technical terms. Let's start share what his speech comes in the form of online. Actually, whatever speech or hate we see in the online, it basically comes either on text, image, audio, or video. The computers systems that have the capabilities nowadays, and mostly using in the algorithm, and also in these sections MLP, NLP, and this neural network to find out that hates automatically. Otherwise, it is difficult for the human to identify it manually. You know that what are the hate sentence? It is difficult. So in the system, we gathered that data from the machine learning, and then we upload it in the systems. And sometimes also it's limitations of that AI that it could not identify exactly what are the sentence or the video in case of the long video or the images that couldn't identify. That is some sorts of limitation that will come, obviously. But most of the cases up to now, most of the renowned social media like Facebook, Twitter, all are using these technologies to identify it in the online platform. And I will say that some of the issues like algorithmic bias that can make also derive us in different way to make the decisions. And also some sorts of limitation might be come like that inclusive, and it's a regulatory problems some way. But overall, it helps that AI to identify the hate speech in online. So that is from my end. I now hand over to you to start that conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, there comes a very basic question of what should we do with online hate? Is it to just ban people? Should we just get them? Because, for example, in Sri Lanka, we know that this was actually practiced. So Sahityanan, what do you think about this?
Actually, it is not banned. I already shared a little bit that sentiment analysis. It is need to perfectly identify whether it is a hate, or if you can find out that a hate is specifically, then it comes to the level whether it is acceptable or minimized. So based on the level of the friction, it can ban that users for the temporary, because you see the users who is writing his text or speech, maybe he has several other contents, but which is for him or her valuable. But for this options, he could be totally banned out. It is not supported by the system, but systems always analyze which is the depth of the sentence, and then decide how it will flag it out. You know that computers have, the AI have that flag. One is about a human context flag praised, and another one is generated from the systems. So if any content that those who uploaded share a mark as a non-hate, or mark it as a free, for example, that something like post that is naughty can be marked as a highly risk. So on the other hand, the human and as perspective of end user, whatever we see in that Facebook, that some comments or speech is not flaggable, so we mark it as a or report it. So this report goes to the platform. There is also two sections. One is automated by the AI systems, and another one is human review. So based on this analysis and the strategy, decisions comes whether he will be banned permanently or for a short times. Thank you.
Sahityanan, do you want to add anything to that?
Yes. So as I mentioned, like since internet has democratized and we had become a big spectrum in that, it's very hard to detach ourselves from that. And just banning will be a very short-term solution. And as people now have become more being in the digital means, I think now the best we have got all the voices from the voiceless societies. Now only marginalized people are talking. Now only women are getting chances to talk. There are LGBT communities. There are different sectors of people now getting their freedom of expression and freedom of speech through all these means. So having a ban would not be very sufficient. So it's more on thinking about censorship, filtering, and monitoring rather than banning would be a very long-term or a sustainable solution from my side.
Rashi?
Right. So what we do, and with our philosophy, at least at HatePace, we're looking at we're looking at the long-term effects of how online hate speech can possibly spill over into offline violence. And we've also realized that banning and censorship does happen on a lot of platforms, and they also a lot of private platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and many others, and they have the right to do so respectfully if they don't like what you're saying or what you're coordinating or what you're enabling through those conversations. But in the long-term aspects of us trying to reach the goal, overarching goal of a less hateful society, we've also seen that removing a particular term or censoring someone or putting them off the platform reinforces a lot of beliefs of all of these conspiracy theories that you hear about targeted towards groups, maybe the Jews or people against, any of the ethnic conflicts that you have in South Asia. I'm not going to name anyone in particular. So you are essentially removing the hateful term, but not the hate, essentially. So we do believe that for us to be able to understand it better, we would definitely not advocate for censorship. And a lot of people in India, and I'm sure even in Sri Lanka, use it to ban terms or ban speech that you don't particularly like. So there's also again like a very blurred line with the terminologies of hate speech and misinformation. So yeah.
So what would you say are the key dimensions that social media firms should report on in order to ensure there are clearer communication of policies such as content guidelines and enforcement as well to users? Rashi?
I think there should be some sort of transparency around their content guidelines, and I think also they need to know about what the offline aspects and situations. And so we, for example, work in a lot of high friction environments and conflict zones in Africa and Asia. So I would say that partnering with a lot of civil society organizations across the world to understand their nuance and where they're coming from is the first step.
Kiran, do you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I think adding on to what Rashi says, it's important. Like the three matters, it's like language, context, and what is the reason behind this happening. So I think the firms and social medias, especially now since they are at large, and I think they are trying to invest as much as possible. But I think there can be great efforts taken, especially getting CSOs, NGOs, especially youth, a lot who is involved. So I think a lot of times hate speech is really hard to tackle, or challenges what we face in real time is having this culture context and also the language problems what we see. So those are the things I think we need to take care of.
And Shah, do you have anything to add to that in terms of social media firms and their role?
Yeah, social media firms, of course, they have the much accountability. They have to update always, because the system they put it, the hate speech or the data set they use, it need to be continuously in updated process, so that can filter out exactly the hate or the actual victims, or that minimize that problem from my side.
Shah, do you believe that misinformation has a role to play in the spread of hate speech?
Yeah, sometimes many of the misinformations comes as a hate speech, maybe without unconscious, it comes, and it is also from this platform dependent how they actually understood that. One of the things that I like to share here, I mean, the limitations often understand a wider social and historical context. They do not understand that if the historical context is bigger, then it is difficult for the system to identify it. So maybe it's misinformation, but the platform identified it as a hate or non-hate. So this kind of typically lacks understandings on the other end, the speakers, and sometimes the systems also struggle with a satire or other complex form of expressions. So this can guide to the misinformations, can lead to the hate also, I think.
Kanan, do you want to add on to that?
Yes, there's an interesting thing. Actually, Rashi mentioned that hate speech loads the gun and misinformation is the trigger. So I would actually resonate a lot with that. Where, like misinformation, actually, like it can be vice versa as well, where hate speech can turn like create a lot of misinformation, and that can disinform people to take again more violence towards this hate speech. But it also can happen in a way that misinformation can create identities, because we have a confirmation bias around us, and the feeds what we see and how we are looked up in the social media are very biased in way. And in that case, if we receive so much of misinformation, particularly targeting a particular group, ethnicity, or gender, and we would automatically create or the triggered hateness would come out, and that can start hate speech, and that can also have a domino effect on other things as well. So that's something that we need to think, and definitely disinformation has a big cost to hate speech.
Thank you. I know that we work together a lot on this, and I'm sure you brought in your experience to Sentinel as well. So with that, Rashi, how do we protect freedom of speech while protecting from hate?
In a world where we do see a lot of censorship, I would how do we protect it? I mean, I would still say that you need to have you need to understand the other side as well. I think a lot of work that we do, we also need to understand the side of the people from the different extremities, and not look at them as people who are necessarily irredeemable, because you've seen a lot of people who were on the conspiracy side or on the side of listing the conspiracy theories, or white supremacists who now kind of move towards advocating for anti-racism and so many other causes. So I think one of the aspects for us to be able to safeguard and protect freedom of speech is also perhaps to understand the other side and make sure that it's not the end all game for them, and there is room for improvement.
Sahityanan, will hate speech lead to these mass atrocities like genocide, and how do you think we can prevent them using AI and combating hate?
Yes, I think I think everyone should know this the Rwandan incident, and at that time social media was not there, but the huge genocide actually happened through conventional medias, but then it all went as hate speech and rumors, and also communal violence and spread, and that became a genocide which spoken even today, which was went in radios about especially targeting Tutsis. But then I can't imagine something that happening right now, because now the information flow is speed, and the internet has brought everyone in a very small nutshell, where we can reach out everything and anything we want. So it will be really catastrophic if we see it right today. And I think these small incidents and hate speeches can be lead to mass atrocity. So that's one of the work we do at Sentinel as well, and we do it across in another few countries. And especially when we see in Sri Lanka, as a case study, if I take the Easter attack was something which was happening or planned for like few years from 2014-15, and if we would have had a AI system to monitor what kind of hate speech we are getting, and where the geographical location and how this information flow is happening, and why this particular community is getting diluted with misinformation, and if we can see the patterns and trends, and I think we would have analyzed and got that why a particular place in Sri Lanka is getting that, and how it has been transformed, and how it's got globalized as well, and then we would have been able to counter the East attack and also save millions of lives. So I think that's like a very small glimpse of exercise, I would say, and that this can be also be a genocide in coming times, and it can happen to any country. So it AI should be, because as a human factor, it's really hard to keep in track, and I think we definitely need AI and a human-centered AI approach to figure out the trends and do the analysis to counter mass atrocities as well.
Let's dive deep into AI and how it will help. Shah, to what extent are machine learning techniques being used to filter online hate speech at the moment?
Thank you, Shafra. Actually, in different perspectives, AI helping and identify the hate, especially when the analysis that sentences, the natural language processes, which is the sub area of AI, works with that processing of vast volume of data. And among various approach, the techniques they used, working with text and possibly from a series of tasks related to the sentiment analysis. And they developed the trained model and classify those sentences as ordinary text or hate disease. So one of the report I shared with you that last year, 2020, Q4, that Facebook has replied that they have able to identify that hate speech and reduced to 95%. And they are also working better to reduce misminimize. And so YouTube also handling this speech in different way. For example, they are not allowed YouTube the content removing, but they are promoting violence, hate against their individuals, groups, age, etc. But victims of major those violent that event and their platform are going to ban. So most of the cases, it's seeing that platforms are using by the social media. Otherwise, it could be, I said earlier, that for individuals or the human to identify the hate individually or from a company. It's a human effort that can also reduce the efficiency. So it's extending in different perspective, I think.
How do you ensure these algorithms are free from bias? Because in the context of hate speech, different people take different terms in different ways based on their cultures. Something that's okay in, say, India is not so okay in Sri Lanka or Nepal. How do you understand the context, and how do you ensure that they are not biased in that sense?
Actually, in specific to that hate speech, actually the overall systems, we do not know for the end user. I mean, they do not know whether it is biased or not. But the guidelines for a trustworthy AI is to collect that data in a responsible way. The data annotation, model testing, model training, that should be in fair, and do not consider those sorts of data that not in favor of or against of that end users. So overall, it should be take with a responsible way. Otherwise, I say that the policy that can be also addressed to tackle the biases in algorithm. It must be inclusive and sustainable for all and well-being, and also should be concerned on the human-centered values and fairness also, because it's also implies that age, sex, quality, and color that should be considered. Therefore, we need to reduce that biases in algorithm. Investigation in AI researchers should grow, and in the national levels should also come forward, regional, in the context of the linguistics and some other trust, so that can altogether we effort to make a bias-free algorithm. And for the end users, they also can give their suggestions from the HD's perspective. Human capacity also here important, right?
Since you mentioned linguistic challenges, Rashi, how do we tackle these linguistic challenges associated with moderating online hate speech? How can global networks of research more nodes collaborate sustainably to keep pace with the constantly evolving nature of online hate speech? How is HateBase doing that exactly?
So one of the approaches that we had, so we're a fairly larger team, and I think most of the people in civil society and the nonprofit space have really limited resources. We have teams in Africa, Asia, and Canada, so we really don't have the cultural nuance or the linguistic aspects to be able to effectively get the inputs that we want. Because if we want to train our algorithms to give us the accurate inputs of what is deemed as hate speech, we decided to set up a citizen linguist lab where anybody across the world, you don't have to be a specialist or a linguist to be able to contribute. Our platform is going open source. I'm going to send a few links on the chat as well. It's going open source next mid-October, so where we can have anyone from all across the world with different dialects. I live in India. Hindi has like 20 plus different dialects, so absolutely open to contributing and kind of letting us know what aspects we could focus on. So we're also open to the 98 plus other languages apart from the ones that are already listed on HateBase. And we also have an FAQ section. You don't have to, we do it very transparently. So there's, whenever you also input your terms, there's no personally identifiable information that we accept. And now we're also getting rid of the registration aspect to safeguard people's privacy. We also have a few, we do have a lot of Indian languages that are of priority. So if there's anyone who's interested to contribute, please reach out to me. I'm happy to talk more about it. So that's a little bit. Also, I wanted to share a little bit about how we at HateBase, one of our motivations behind why we started believing in automating this. We think that a lot of human moderators go through a lot of mental health challenges. Imagine going through 12 hours of heinous content on sexual violence or hate speech and hate crimes and genocide. And also human moderators also, there's very limited capacity given the sheer volume that we've seen with so many people coming in online, and we have a lot more people coming in online, especially with the recent pandemic. And also human moderators also paid very unfairly. Most of them come from the global south. There's a lot of issues in terms of how they're compensated. So we realized that moderation is a more effective technique. It's more accurate as compared to human moderation.
Thank you. How can automated hate speech monitoring be improved to reduce the need for this human moderation, especially because of human error and of course the pay and all of that? And in what ways can artificial intelligence and natural language processing be most efficiently employed for this purpose? Rashi?
We would say that we don't necessarily we do have a human moderator at the end of it. We have a hate brain NLP that performs sentiment analysis. We also divide our hate speech terms on gender and ethnicity and a few other terms. We also ask you to give us a bit of context on what you've heard or where you heard. We ideally looking at conversations that people have seen in person or seen on social media rather than hearing it in a movie. But we do have a human moderator towards the end where we look at kind of moderating all of those aspects. So it's not, I wouldn't say that we are there yet we are enhancing our NLPs, but I wouldn't say that it could do it on its own as such. So it's not like a magic wand that will help you whip up hate speech. It also depends a lot on the data sets, which is why we work across different sectors. We work with NGOs, we work with a lot of universities across the world who want to use our platform. We also have our API that is available, which would be also open source by the next month. So yeah, it's a combination of everything out there.
Thank you. So as you've already seen on the chat, if you have a question or comment, please either raise your hand or wait for the moderator to unmute you to speak. If you prefer your question or comment to be read out loud, you can type it in the chat in the format that the team has put in on the chat right now. So feel free to ask us any questions at any point, and we will try to address it throughout the rest of the session. So with that, we have one question for Sahityan before we go into our next new speaker, which is, how does gendered hate speech lead to technology-related violence? What can we do to bring prevention or protection methods?
Yeah, especially with hate speech, I think the main aspects that we are seeing is gender, and especially when you talk about gender, it's not only women but also marginalized communities, vulnerable groups, and especially LGBTQI people also been very much targeted. And definitely, this has been common. I think every time if we see women in politics, if we see women achieving something, or gendered wise, if we get any post, I think that's a very common phenomena that we see in social media, that every day there is some kind of talk depending on where you are and depending on the celebrity level and or national level, and it just varies. But that the violence has been escalated a lot, but then I think the mitigation is always what we have taken is like two rather two extremes. One is we say, okay, don't use social media platforms often, or not to be engaged as much, or we go to the other end saying that we need very strict and punitive, very harsh laws that which can give sense to all these violences. But I think those two approaches will be very, I think, very biased in their own ways. I think not having big laws and like again having law reforms doesn't work much, because I think every country has, I think, hopefully have enough and more laws. Even in Sri Lanka, there is enough and more laws to safeguard all this. It's just that how we strengthen is, and how we do the monitoring and how we do the censorship is more it works. And definitely I think it should be more open, that we are open to it. And especially after pandemic, we see all the young people and especially young children are very get used to these social medias, and especially these virtual tools. And I think we cannot say no for those things, and they're gonna be anyway prone to these threats. So only thing what we can do is, one is education and awareness where they can learn about it, but second is also about how AI can help to monitor, and how to can prevent all this, and bring like an early warning system where the certain posts can be censored, and certain like firms and institutions can enforce it, such as Facebook to other platforms where majorly they use. And I think they are doing like small scale ones, like where we get like a lot of forwarded messages, and Facebook have fact checks now going on. But I think the more as Rashi mentioned, the more the data set the AI gets, the more intelligent it can be, and where it can be more prone to detect and bring an early warning system, and also a system to protect as well from harmful contents and all those things. And I think that's the way to go, rather than taking a harsh decision on having like very rigorous methods on legal side as well.
Thank you. With that, let me. So we have a new guest in our session as well. Some of you may know him, but just in case you don't, he is Unggul Sagena. He's from the Southeast Asia Freedom of Expression Network, Indonesia. He's this year's APrIGF Fellow. And I would really like to ask him, what are your thoughts on all of this? You've heard quite a lot from the panelists before, and you also have vast experience in this subject. What are your thoughts on online hate, moderation, and AI, and what its part of it is?
Okay. Thank you, Safra, and also all the speakers. I think some thoughts that I can say, we have to come to back to the purpose, because sometimes, usually, if we talk about AI, we talk about like a high AI that including a portrait of complicated things, that very heavy topic to discuss. But I think AI can also be, we discuss it as a solution, not as a technically based that we have to do this, to do that. But AI comes as a solution to what problems that we should tackle. For this for this matter is about the hate speech. Yeah, based on my experience also, moderation is always like a better than use like a coercive way, like banning people from, let's say they say that this is their freedom of expression or something like that. We could have debate on that, but to mitigate such a condition, the AI for the moderation, I mean, although the moderation with the automation based or AI based or human centered based, it should be served as the tools or the way or the approach to make the environment is like an ideal. Yeah. So we know that AI is learning. They are learning, but also humans also learn. So in using AI, I think AI undoubtedly will contribute to the most provision of the realm of our cyber spare and technology based future, yeah, whatsoever in the future. But the human centered decision making is they can also identify hate speech at a community based. They can counter hate speech and also biases from machine moderation. So the challenge is how to put these two approaches together. So we know that these two approaches they have their limitation. So how and when we have to use the software, we can say that in moderating in such cyber places. So and also the challenge is in which arena or in which a group we should involve the AI to moderate. So because like I said, it is come back to the purpose is kind of creating the idea like the digital communication that AI learns and humans also learn. So this two will learn together and making like a safe environment. So one more thing that I could say is about, I think they have to be like we have to face the challenge also from the existing regulations. Sometimes regulations does not favorable to the vulnerable persons, and sometimes the regulations like the internet laws and some sort of that in the different country have a different interpretation. So the use of this AI for the mitigation of this kind of future criminals, as I say that because of the hate speech, people can persecute others. People can they do doxing to other people, something like that. So AI, in this sense, should prevent this happen. Like Satyanan said that it is like early warning system that we could deploy to support the condition. So I think from the perspectives of the FOA and also the activists, I think this kind of environment that we want to have in the digital communication. I think that's my thought about how AI can contribute to to tackle the hate speech and online spam. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for your insights using your experience here today. So with that, we go back to Shah. I have a question here on what is the potential of explainable AI in this domain? What is explainable AI, and what is the domain that it is in first?
AI actually is the vast things, that we are talking about. AI can, one of the hype it's in the market that AI can do everything. Actually, we do not should say that AI can do everything. But yeah, most of the problem can we nowadays can figure out, because we are in the age of artificial intelligence, whatever we say, the digital world or digital space. And every day we are learning. Every day the system is introducing different tools and technologies. So my point of view that is explainable in especially for that hate speech that earlier I said that it reduced the human effort, whereas that the machine learning can do process within a short period of time and can do it in better efficient way. So I will say that it is that where I can explain that it is far better from other perspectives because no alternative we have, because in the digital space every day coming lots of hits, lots of text, images, speech in abuse way. So how we can handle that? This is the technologies we are in some cases is using deep learning or the text speech analysis. So this is how I like to explain that AI is the most convenient way that we can address that problem. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have an answer to all of you, which is when it comes to policy, what are the recommendations that you would want to be addressed to reduce hate speech from social media? And how do we ensure that this is included in those policies in consideration of hate speech and incitement to violence online? And how do you think these policies should be applied in real time? Because we've got a question from the audience as well about jurisdiction conflicts in filing these cyber complaints and delayed delivering of justice. How do you think that policy can help? And also if you want to add on to that. Can we start with Rashi?
Yeah, just wanted to say we actually don't work a lot on jurisdiction. We advocate hate speech as a service, and we, of course, we do work with government agencies. A lot of our work is centered around counter messaging and, of course, policy making, especially for the high friction environments and conflict zones that we work in. But we don't directly work on on delivering, I would say, justice or kind of moving on those lines. We're more advocates of counter messaging, and yeah, we also, of course, do regularly have policy recommendations with the work that we do.
What are the policy recommendations that you feel like should be considered?
I think one, I would definitely say that in terms of censorship, with the increase of censorship, I would definitely say to dial down a bit on the level of censorship that we have around hate speech so that we can effectively understand it. And I think we also need to have more people trying to understand what is the correlation between online hate speech leading to offline violence. I think that correlation and understanding has to be deeply studied over, because we still don't take it too seriously.
Sahithyanan, do you want to add anything to that?
Yes, I think also with the question, I think we just talk about as like these 3 P's, where we have to strengthen the protection, prosecution, and prevention methods as well. So I would say as recommendations, as prevention methods, we need to start even at policy level, where this internet governance should be intervene more, and national level policy should be more aligned with internet, and it's rapid changing, and we cannot rely on certain policies and laws which has been there for a very long time, because internet is very fast and it's rapid. So I think the policies also should be as a living document, where it can be added more information and can be also enforced very quickly. But also awareness raising on digital literacy, and also giving proper training for these officers, especially for the questions in the chat. I think whoever works in these crime divisions and also cyber crime divisions, all those people should be more known about this technology related violence, and how this hate speech and all also gives a threat to it. And I think that comes under the prevention thing. And as a protection, I think this also talks about the victims, right? Also talks about the victims who has been affected by this hate speech, and how do we have protection mechanisms for that? Do we have some policies to look at, because we know that as a domestic violence, or if you have any kind of violence which also happens in offline as well, because hate speech also happens in offline, but there they have a seek to go for psychosocial help and other kind of support. But what happens to the online victims? Do they have just kept there, and what happens to them? So there should be a protection policy as well, and prosecution is definitely something which is lacking, where the policies has to be not very strict, but then further strengthen. And I think the quick justice system should be there, because it's very hard to find. That's why I think AI is also needed, and the problems which is arising from technology also have to be the solutions that we get from technology, because we cannot just solve problems just because because it's a technology problem, and as humans we can just solve it. We have to have another technology to solve it, and I think that also comes with tracking these perpetrators, and also finding those IDs, and it's very haywire in a digital spectrum as well. In that case, I think the more the technology and the AI get worked out, and I think the more we can leverage this technology to find the method, I think the more prosecutions can happen, where I think people can benefit from happening all these hate speech violences as well. I think those are the things that I would recommend if any country or any policy should be taken upon.
Thank you. And Shah, do you want to add on to that?
Actually, my friend, he covered most of the things. Still, I will have my few comments. Like he already added that advocate for that countries to strengthen the AI governance actually needed with regards to the international standards for human rights and the development mechanisms for the transparency and accountability and readiness. And also, I think for private sector and the technical community to conduct a human rights AI applications, so that they can ensure that this do not interfere with the human rights aspects. These are the things I think needed to come in the policy discussions. Get back to you.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you just broke off a little bit, but I think we were clear enough to understand what you had to say, so it's all good. Ungul, do you want to add on anything?
Maybe a little about what I said earlier about the challenge of the regulation. Yes, that's for human rights perspective. Sometimes we have to find out, like in each country, they have their own laws in regulating the online hate speech. For example, even though we have the international agreement that on the solicitation of hatred against like nation, race, religions, and that incites acts of discrimination, hostility, and violence from such as Rabat Plan of Action from the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights and other similar international agreement. But the thing is, some law or regulation in specific country, in particular, they have to improve because the regulation, the law, because providers of the AI base, like such as like hate base, for example, and also other developers, they have to work on this kind of the same framework, that if there is like a bias, for example, like some regulation, the elites usually use it to silence critics, something like that. So I mean, the developers or business, they only can work in the business environment that like they try to create or develop a solution for this kind of for this example is mitigate the hate speech. But the definition of the hate speech and some cases of hate speech, they don't touch in that area. So the government side, the policy should be clear, about the type of hate speech, who can be punished, and the factors of like imposing a punishment. So if this is also clear. We can differentiate between this is hate speech or not, or and so like offensive language, is this punishable or not, something like that. So it is important to address in the in this environment of the online communication, and that trigger or creating the ideal environment. I think that's also a point that I have to say in this words of AI.
Thank you. So with that, we also have this question of people don't really understand what is misinformation, what is actual hate speech. While some may consider something to be hate, the other may not. They may think that it's either patriotism or any of the other elements of speech. So how do you truly work in that environment to kind of ensure that people have that this AI would actually counteract all these hate speech that's coming out, consideration of all of these things? Rashi, do you want to add anything, because you've been running HateBase and it's part of
I would just say is that we can't look at misinformation and hate speech in many contexts. Perhaps in the northern aspect or in the northern hemisphere, we have like very distinct definitions of misinformation and hate speech. But we see, even if you have to draw a Venn diagram, we see a lot of relation between misinformation and hate speech, and kind of seeing one enabling the other in most of these environments, which Sahi has explained so beautifully earlier.
With that, we are coming to a close to our session. So we'd like to first do a quick round of maybe 2 points you would like the audience to know to kind of close out the session. Or if there is any one question from the audience.
Yeah, actually, I would prefer if we open it up for the audience. We just have 4 minutes. If we can open it up for questions.
That's better to hear from the audience, their experience also.
Do any of you have any questions, or did we cover everything? I don't think we did, because it's such a mass topic with so many intricate details in it. You can also put it on chat if you're feeling a little shy or your connection is bad. We can add it in. Okay. Looks like we don't at the moment. Do you guys have any closing statements? Maybe 1 or 2, because we don't have much time left. Can we start with Rashi, then move to Saityanan, and then move to Shah, and then Ungul at the end of it? Yeah.
I would actually just keep it for Q&A and listen to Cheryl if there's really not much time. No, I think I've mostly covered everything, but maybe I don't have anything to say. Actually, I've covered most of my topics. I don't have a closing statement as such. But
Saityanan, do you want to add anything?
Yes, since there's a big audience, I would say, we always like to practice our rights, and we always talk for our rights, and we fight for our rights. And I would say, like, when you talk about rights, that means the right comes along with the responsibility too. So whenever I would say, as an internet user, when you have the right to be expressed and be using their freedom of speech or expression, always also see the responsibility of how much you can do and what is the limitations, and whether how far it can fall into a hate speech or a different category where it can be prone to violence. So have a right and responsibility, and as individuals who are interested in the topic, as Rashi mentioned, I think there are a lot of initiatives like we also running, and there are also other organizations who is doing. So always don't be afraid to report, don't be afraid to raise opinions and voice out and tell that this is wrong and this is right. And I think that's how the community grows, and the more the inputs you give, and I think more we can be also a good counter narrative for the hate speech as well.
Yeah. Since we have only 2 minutes left, Shah, do you have one line or?
Actually, almost all the things we covered. Just I want to say that to make that AI inclusive, not only on that platform in that hate speech, or to make that artificial intelligence feasible for all, or to make it good. all the stakeholders have the duty, rights or responsibilities to come forward and make it together inclusive. That's from my end. Thank you.
Finally, Ungu.
Yeah, I think I want to say just like AI learns and we also learn, humans and AI. So let's work together for the better future. Yeah, I think that's the point of my thought today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. With that, we come to a close on this session. Thank you so much for being a part of it and learning from all of us together. Thank you to our panelists, Rashi, Sahityan, and Shah, as well as Ungul, who joined us later on, for kind of bringing out their insight and helping us learn about this topic a little better. So with that, we hope you enjoy the rest of your sessions today. And we hope you have an interesting experience with something to take home with you. You can, of course, add them up on LinkedIn.
I've just sent my email as well on chat. And thank you so much to all of the organizers for making this happen. We really appreciate it.
Feel free to bug them on all social media platforms. I know all of them are on it. You can also see it on their Facebook, on the Facebook page as well. And feel free to communicate with them on whatever questions you have post this session as well. There's also a 2021 synthesis document. The comment is on the chat. If you want to contribute and give your input, you can also go into that. There's also a virtual town hall session at the end of today, which is at 9:10 UTC. So you can actually get your voice heard. There's also a coffee break up next, so make sure that you get caffeinated before you go into the next town hall session.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Everyone.
Recording stopped.